And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Ben is back. Happy holidays, buddy. How'd it go?
It was excellent. How's your holidays?
Oh, still going.
Yeah, still going. We got another holiday coming up on Old Wednesday.
Terrific.
We'll be here tomorrow. Getting you ready for the college football playoff.
Yeah, we're talking some college football while we can. Of course, we'll dive into BYU coming up here in a moment. We can talk some Jazz, too, if we want to.
No, I think the Jazz games have been interesting. Minus you having to sit an extra hour while the team got ready in Cleveland. Again, I don't really feel bad for you having your job ever because we have very good jobs and similar jobs. But there was a fourth quarter where the Jazz were down 45. It was the Clippers game that started on a Monday at 8:30 p.m. for some reason. And then there was the Cleveland game where I kid you not, because I've been on a break. I haven't had to work the games, but I've been paying attention to them. I was like, well, I'll get a quick pregame nap and I'll sleep a little bit before the game starts. And I slept, and I ended up sleeping for like 90 minutes. I just had this horrible winter nap where I was gone, and I woke up and it was tip-off. And I thought, no, I've been asleep for 90 minutes. It's a Twilight Zone episode. And no, the rim was bent.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, man, what did Jake do?
Yeah, it was bent. You don't say. I could take you through that whole frustrating experience if you really want. Why right before tip is that when you notice that the rim's bent?
I had the exact same thought.
Why is that when you notice?
And I get that sometimes players dunk and that throws it off, but it's they dunk in games too. What actually is happening there? Yeah,
and
whose incompetence went overlooked?
Now, we have access to our good friend Jeremy Potter, who is very familiar with the operations of NBA arenas because, well, he's been doing it forever. And he was saying 20 minutes minimum to get a new standard in, okay? So for the first, half hour, they used 30 people to, do nothing.
Look at the existing one.
Some moron got up on the ladder and was yanking on the rim. And I was like, right. That's what we're doing? That's your solution? Yeah. Is there just some idiot yanking on it? That's it? That's what they did for the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they took, the 20 minutes to get the other standard in and get it fixed. And it ended up being like a 55-minute delay. Silly. Sometimes, I say this, jokingly when mistakes happen on the radio, but is this an NBA broadcast?
Right.
Is this an NBA game?
Right. No, I'm with you.
Millions of dollars are invested to make sure this goes correctly. And some idiot's up there yanking on the rim?
Right.
That's what we're doing.
Right. There is no kind of standard operating procedure that everyone knows to go to. It says, the second we realize this rim is bent, we have 90 seconds to see if we can fix it ourselves. And if not, we immediately go get the other stanchion and bring it in. Immediately, because there are 20,000 people here. There are at least 2 TV stations waiting to watch. There's at least 2 radio stations waiting to broadcast.
The players are ready to play.
The players are ready. The fans have to go places after this. We have to get this done in 30 minutes or less. Absolutely, at the absolute longest. And yeah, they were like, let's get Bob up on the ladder. It's a net
hey,
issue.
Bob, go yank on it. See if it comes back to normal.
Yeah.
The you just noticed before tip. You didn't notice this a half hour ago?
There isn't somebody out there who says, I'm going up there with the level.
Making sure?
Here, it's fine.
Yeah.
Here, it's fine. We're ready to play
where were you an hour ago, Bob?
Yeah. Anyways.
So, yeah, that was a fun game.
That was the most I thought about you, though, during the
well, I'm glad you didn't.
During the break.
Yeah, that was really something. And actually, I did have somewhere to go after the game, so it was I'll make some phone calls. And you know what? And it was the Donovan Mitchell game. It was a
big game.
Anticipated game from everybody.
Yep.
And Locke at one point was like, we may have to throw this back to studio. And I told Jamil, tell him no.
Tell me when to get food.
Tell him,
we're out.
Tell him no.
Shooting hoops on the floor. We're watching the hockey game. Whatever it is. What else you got to say, Ron?
Thanks for that pleasant memory. Yeah, well, back to you, Ron. Spin us some yarns. Which Booner could, and they filled fine. But yeah, at one point he's like, "Wait, we may have to throw it back to studio." I was like, "No, you don't. No, you're good. Come on, David, you're a professional."
Get out your radio chops.
Oh yeah, so that was really something. Yeah, but you say interesting from the Jazz. I'm curious to what you mean.
Well, I mean,
interesting, like in a good way, and we can dive into it. But
well, do you want to talk BYU or do you want to talk?
No, we should lead with BYU. That's the huge story.
Yeah, we'll get to the Jazz coming up at the top three.
I feel pretty good about one particular show. Well, I guess we only did one show last week, my Friday show.
Yeah.
Because everybody was saying BYU, around the Jazz. Everybody was like, "Oh, I hope BYU doesn't get blitzed." Like people I talk to in my personal life are like, "Well, are they going to score 1,000 points and BYU's going to lose by 50?" I mean, even BYU fans, that was like the what I observed surrounding it. And I came on the air on Friday. I said, "No, why would you think that? They have the best defensive backfield that they have had since 1996. They've got a lot going for them. And Colorado's defense, still not good. And their offensive line, by the way, still not good. And I was not a huge believer, as you know, in Colorado to begin with. So my take on Friday was like, where is that coming from? You know what I mean? BYU was perfectly equipped to win that ball game. And I didn't get where all the
negativity.
I didn't understand where all that was coming from. I love it that, Travis Hunter was playing, and we've talked a lot about Shedeur. But that doesn't make them unbeatable. And I know BYU lost a couple of games in November. That didn't make them any less capable, in my opinion, of winning that game. And they came out and stomped them. Good for the Cougs.
Absolutely. Colorado is not an elite team and wasn't going into the game. So good for BYU. I think if you had told me that Jake Retzlaff's final stat line would have been 12 for 21, 151 yards passing and 2 interceptions, I thought BYU certainly would have been in trouble with no touchdowns because I thought they weren't going to be able to score enough points there. But again, you have a special team score. You get 2 takeaways of your own, at least 2 takeaways through the air. Did they get any fumbles? And either way. And then they ran all over Colorado. I mean, they just, 180 yards on the ground? Just steamrolled Colorado whenever they needed to move the ball on the ground. It was 3rd and short, 2nd and short throughout the game. So credit them and credit Colorado for having their players show up, and I can say the same thing for BYU. They've got some guys who could jump to the league if they didn't want to come back next year and didn't have to play. They could have Cam Warded it and only played the first half, but good for everybody who played. It still wasn't a very good game, and that's just kind of the hit or miss aspect of bowl games. And you know what the nice thing is? If you win, you say, awesome, that was a great win for BYU, and they're up to 11 wins, and everyone's happy about it. And I'm sure Colorado fans haven't thought about that loss since.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Dion thought about the loss. We can definitely get to that. And I actually thought he was all class. And what he said about Kalani was really, really cool. But can we get back to your hypothetical you? If we were, you would have told me that he had 2 interceptions, 151 yards. Why? You're forgetting that they've Utah'd BYU.
They have.
Retzlaff isn't. I always sound insulting, and I'm not trying to because the guy just won 11 games. But he's not that great. He's not the reason that they won 11 games.
No,
and we just assume that the quarterback is so important that that's the reason that they're successful. And this game is actually a good example of the season as a whole, that they are a collective team. They are not about a dynamic quarterback. They're not really even about dynamic, individual players.
No, this is not a Kyle Van Noy-led defense.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's very much a Utah team. I mean, the coaches came from Utah. It's very much a Utah team. They beat Colorado in very much a Utah way. Dynamic special teams, rock solid defense. They're going to run the ball. You know how Shedeur Sanders doesn't throw for 400 yards? Well, he's not on the field.
Yeah.
BYU dominated the time of possession. Yeah, they dominated the big plays.
Looked at what that number was.
Well, BYU had around 10 more minutes, I believe. Let me bring it up.
Which again is a lot.
11 more minutes than Colorado, which is a lot. Yeah. But I might add, how much of that 24 minutes did Colorado have in the second half or fourth quarter when it just wasn't?
The game was over.
The game was over.
Yeah.
It just wasn't happening. You know what I mean? Like BYU smothered Colorado.
Yeah. There wasn't even a fake comeback. There wasn't even a Colorado had a 14-0 third quarter. Colorado didn't outscore BYU in any of the quarters. Like it was never close. It never felt close. It never felt like Colorado was in the game. And I will say one of the things that's great about BYU, and I understand they had 2 losses this year, they were prepared for every single game. They didn't play well in every game. But I never once went in and thought, oh, BYU doesn't know what they're doing. Now, they had a really bad first half against Arizona State, and they came back and had a chance to win it because Arizona State couldn't throw the ball high enough in the air to end the game. But they were prepared. Like there was no time when BYU showed up. The way we have seen Utah at times show up to some games and be like, oh, man, they got blitzed. They totally got outclassed in that game. BYU was prepared every week, and that includes their game against Colorado. And I don't think Colorado was at all prepared for BYU.
No, I think you could make an argument the way that they came out, they probably underestimated BYU, which is probably true. But Kalani is a really good coach. He is. And he's become a better coach the longer he's been a head coach. And you know what? The knives have been out for him a couple of times down there in Provo. And he's managed to, win a big game against USC. I remember that time when kind of the rumblings were out that maybe Kalani wasn't the guy back with Zach Wilson's freshman year. Something like that. And he wins some big games and gets that extension. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the last time that there were some rumblings like maybe he wasn't the guy. He's great. He's great. And he deserves all the praise that he's getting for this 11-win season. And what he's doing with that program down there is fantastic. And now it sounds like behind the scenes they're going to start pumping even more resources into the program. And so, years of this BYU being a very difficult job, all of a sudden it's getting to be a little bit easier. And he's showing some success in that he's the guy for the Cougs. And I think that they were well coached this year. They were well coached in that bowl game. Absolutely. Yep. Showed up ready to roll.
And everyone showed up ready to play. It didn't look like a bunch of kids who had been on Christmas break.
Had a great game plan. I'll tell you what aggravated me after the bowl game. We can get to that in a second. But you never heard a negative complaining word about Kalani throughout the entire process. Like he's all class with Deion. Deion's all class. I mean, it was a feeling of kind of what sports are supposed to be, even though it was a really lopsided game. And I love it that Shedeur and Travis Hunter played. I do.
Absolutely.
And I know BYU fans are annoyed because that's all. I actually didn't listen to the broadcast because I watched it in the command center there
while you were working.
While I was working. So I didn't hear the lopsidedness of it. I guess they wouldn't shut up about the fact that those two played. But good. I think it's great that they played. Because the agents win too much and these players just, I'm not going to play because it's my own best interest. Yeah, but how about the team once in a while? Yeah. So I'm going to give him credit for doing it.
Shedeur was on his back the whole game. I mean,
he took a beating.
He took a lot of hits. He absolutely could have rested if he wanted to and just said, finger hurts in the first quarter and not play the rest of the game.
So
but he did.
Give him credit. Give him a ton of credit. He deserves it.
It's interesting you didn't listen to the broadcast because I was going to bring a point up that they mentioned, and it goes back to something you just said, which was they said they think Jake Retzlaff could be a top 5 quarterback in college football next year.
Yeah, well, they told me that about Cam Rising.
Well, exactly right. And I think that's really
true.
interesting. And you don't need him to be that.
No.
Now, again, it's this funny thing, which is always like, well, if Utah had a top 5 quarterback, think of how good they'd be with that defense. And again, it goes back to my, the system does what it does.
They've Utah'd BYU, and now BYU has to justify average quarterback play. And again, I don't want to harsh on Retzlaff. He's getting the job done. He did a great job this year, but he's not a top 5 quarterback.
And there is a huge switch that I hadn't looked at until literally right now of how well he started the year over the first 8 games and his last 5 games. His first 8 games, he was a 60% completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, including add in 3 more touchdowns on the ground. So he accounted for 21 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, 60% completion percentage. His last 5 games, now this includes Kansas and Arizona State, who were better teams, includes Utah, who's a good defense. He was 54%, so down about 6 percentage points. He was 2 touchdowns through the air, 5 interceptions, but did add 3 more on the ground. So he was about 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His close to the season was not brilliant. It was not super strong. So I do think there is going to be some question going into next year of what type of player Jake Retzlaff is going to be, whether or not that's the narrative. I do worry there's going to be a narrative that he's going to come back as a top 5 quarterback. And to your point, I don't think that's what the system allows you to be the way Utah and now BYU is playing.
And he's not that anyway.
And he's not that anyways. And more importantly, he doesn't need to be.
No.
Because guess what? For Colorado to win games, what do they need? They need Shedeur to not be a top 5 quarterback. They need him to be the best quarterback in the country. And when he's not, like he wasn't on Saturday because BYU made him look pedestrian, they were awful. Colorado was awful, even with Travis Hunter, who, if you give him the ball with 3 feet of space around him, it's a touchdown. He's that dynamic. And we saw it. He had that long touchdown. But if Shedeur is anything less than superb, they don't stand a chance. That's what was great about BYU. Jake Retzlaff doesn't have to be superb every game. In fact, he wasn't superb most games. He was just good most games. And you're going to win when he does that. That's a really well-coached team from top to bottom.
Now, I'll tell you what aggravated me was some of the coverage afterwards where people were saying, well, maybe BYU should have been in the playoff.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, you're just noticing that now? Well, BYU beat SMU. Maybe they should have been considered. It was like, wait, huh? Now you're saying that now?
I've hated that whole narrative for every team because as soon as SMU lost, and who was the other? I mean, every team got blown out. There were 4 straight blowouts in the opening round of the playoffs, and every team that lost, we thought, well, Clemson probably shouldn't have been there, or SMU probably shouldn't have been there, or Indiana probably shouldn't have been there. It's like, you know what? I think the same thing probably would have happened to BYU. If I'm telling you the truth, I think BYU probably would have gotten rolled by a lot of those teams as well. It's just what the system is. It's just what's going to happen. And if you want to keep fixing it and putting cats in the wall, you can. Was BYU better than Indiana this year? I bet they probably were. Do I believe that? Do I know they were better than SMU? Yes, I saw them on the field together. I just don't want to keep playing the game of, well, maybe this other team should have been in. It's like, yeah, there's too many teams in. That's what we've learned. And you can't keep switching out the 12th team trying to find the right opponent until you get a good game. It's not going to happen.
Okay. And yeah, and that's actually Kalani's approach, and I'm glad he didn't complain about it. Fine. But under present circumstances, present rules, evaluations, the stupid committee, and what they're supposedly judging on, it's ludicrous that BYU is left out. They beat SMU.
Yeah.
On the road.
Yep.
On the road.
Yep.
And then they had the same record. And SMU played in a worse league by a mile.
And didn't
the
win
ACC
their championship
and
game either.
Didn't win their league.
No.
What?
Yeah.
And now people are like, BYU should have gotten in. Yeah. Again, the committee should have just picked Alabama. Because then they could have said, well, yeah, we're in the SEC's pocket. What do you want from us? But they picked SMU.
Yeah.
Again, Tom Olmo had to be sitting in his office going,
what do I have to do here?
Hey,
yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
And then you see the national bozos being like, oh, maybe BYU should have gotten in. Where you been?
Yep.
Where you been? Under present, like, supposed rules and circumstance. I thought that was hilarious. And you know what? Maybe it's one of those squeaky wheels kind of things because Kalani didn't complain about it for 1 second. And I appreciate that.
Yep.
Because to your point, I mean, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. That's why Mark Harlan kicking in the press conference door was stupid.
Didn't change anything.
What are you going to do about it? Nothing. You just look like a crybaby. So I appreciate that Kalani handled it like an adult. Maybe that's why it didn't get any attention. But it was ridiculous. And I think if BYU did anything, they proved that point. Like, okay, SMU got demolished. Well, we had a better resume than SMU. Who's to say we wouldn't have won? So.
Yep, I get you.
All right, more next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Let's start off with the good news of Kyle Whittingham coming back. Tell me what that means for this Utah team and what kind of legacy are we going to see Kyle Whittingham hopefully set himself up for this next season?
He's worked too hard. He's accomplished too much of that program. He's the Lavelle Edwards of Utah football. You think he wants to go out 5-7? Of course not. The challenge for Kyle Whittingham now is to come back with a renewed energy and vigor to turn this program around. Kyle Whittingham has to rebuild his own program. There's a lot lot of changes already. We're up past 15 players that are in the portal. He's got a brand new offensive coordinator in Jason Beck. Utah looks completely different now than they did even 3 or 4 weeks ago. This is going to be a lasting part of his legacy, is to turn around the program that went 5-7 and turn them into something special next season. And a lot of work Alex is going to have to go into that.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about Win Ticket Wednesday. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. Listen to the station all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Time for the top 3 stories of the day. KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you. One on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall. The other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, we got the Jazz back in action tonight. They're hosting the Denver Nuggets.
I'm sure you dealt with some panic during the break of Jazz winning back-to-back games in Detroit and in Brooklyn. Detroit's actually a pretty good team, so that was a surprising win, and certainly the Jazz were up 30 in the first quarter. That was shocking. And then Brooklyn had just gone through a trade. They've since done another trade yesterday. But Brooklyn's not a good team. You're going to win some of those games. They have now lost 3 in a row, Cleveland, Portland, and Philly. But these last 2 games have been really close, and they actually played pretty well against Cleveland after the hour delay.
Yeah, no, they did. I am frustrated with this season. I'm going to get, I'm sure, into a better place with it come the new year. But the fact that they're incentivized to lose, and I would argue, and this is why you have to be so delicate with this stuff, are absolutely like in-game coaching to lose. And that's not a fair accusation. I hate it that we're like in this weird world, because the truth is that these teams are losing on purpose, but they can't talk about it because you're not supposed to lose on purpose, and it's this weird, stupid thing. But I mean, Will Hardy is playing these players down the stretch where he could be winning, and he's not. I come back to the Portland game. You wait just long enough to put Lowry and Colin Sexton back in the game.
Yeah.
Yep. You do these things where, like, if you look at the points at the rim in the fourth quarter against Portland, they had 23 in the first 3 quarters. Ben, they had 24 in the fourth. It was a layup line in the fourth quarter. Like, that's in some way, shape, or form, that's got to be intentional. And
the obvious place, and I
they should have beat Philly at home.
Yeah,
they
Philly.
absolutely should have.
Yeah. Oh, they should have beat Portland. Yeah, absolutely. Before the season started, I put out a little projected depth chart for the Jazz. And I riled up a lot of fans because I had Svi Mykhailiuk ahead of Cody Williams. And just based on how Will Hardy had played and coached his teams the last 2 years and the guys he'd played, he just kind of played the better guys. Svi Mykhailiuk is better than Cody Williams. And that's not a knock on Cody's future. Cody is 20. Svi Mykhailiuk's 26, played 4 years at Kansas or whatever, won a championship there, and has been in the NBA for 4 years. He was on the Boston Celtics last year. Yes, Svi is better than Cody Williams. He's better than Bryce Sensabaugh. But if you played Svi every game, including these last 2 games, if you had played him for 25 minutes a night or 25 minutes every night, the Jazz would be sitting at 15 wins right now, which is where Phoenix is. I have no doubt about that. And maybe 8 wins is a lot for one guy, but it's all these close games that the Jazz are not winning are by design. And you design it by playing a Cody or a Bryce or an Isaiah Collier minutes that you're going to lose the minutes that they're on the floor instead of having a guy out there who's going to hit 6 threes like Svi Mykhailiuk seems to do every time he steps up to the plate.
Listen, Micah Potter and Cousin Drew. That's, by the way, that's what instead of Uncle Drew.
Okay.
Tim and I are going with Cousin Drew. Yeah, Cousin Drew Eubanks are so much better than Kyle Filipowski. It's silly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly. Yep. Micah Potter has to be sitting there being like, dude, I'm sucking up DNPs over here. And by the way, he played against Philly. So, but, and I'm watching Flip out there.
Yeah.
Look like he's lost in the woods.
Yep.
It's frustrating to me. And not that development, and here's where we've been all year, and it's not like these guys playing is uninteresting. That's why I was going to ask you what was exactly interesting about it. But the point of it and the way, like Jazz fans at the game should have enjoyed an upset victory over the Sixers. They should have. But that's not how they played. That's not how they coached.
Nope.
They didn't coach to win. And I don't like it. And I get it, and I don't like it. You opened this segment by saying, I bet you dealt with some grumpy fans because they won 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? What are we doing here?
I saw it online.
I know, and
yeah.
I hate it. I hate it.
I will say I thought Bryce was fabulous in the game against Philly. He had 20 points off the bench, and it was his most complete game. He just was rebounding. He was doing better things than he has done all year. And I actually thought Cody played well. 6 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. He was 2 of 4 from the floor. I actually liked some of the shots that he took, which was just meaning he got to the rim and kind of made sense of the shots he took. He did have 5 fouls because, again, he weighs 130 pounds. And so every time he touches somebody, he's going to flail, and it's going to be a foul. But he was also a team-high plus 16. I thought you felt him when he was on the floor.
I don't know if I agree with that, but yeah. I mean, even when he gets to the rim, he's just like I described it Friday. It's just a whisper. I mean, he spots a little. I mean,
like
it's
a
not.
lane, yeah,
and he just whispers in and gets a layup, which is great. But that's not. He's going to have to learn to really get to the rim. And he does. He gets pushed around. The plus 16 was, I suppose, a good sign, but I barely notice it when he plays. I mean, I just do. I hate to admit it, but I barely know. If I didn't have to Cody Williams is in the game, I wouldn't even know.
He's going to have to learn to finish without ever weighing a whole lot. And, Kevin Durant has figured it out. And it's hard to say you got to be Kevin Durant. That's not what I mean. But, he's got to learn how Kevin Durant has made a career of getting off good shots despite the fact that he's not super strong.
See, I don't see him necessarily like a Kevin Durant who can't put on weight. I would love it
if he can look like his brother.
Don't make that judgment just yet.
Okay.
I mean, if honestly, like Taylor Hendricks put on 20 pounds in the offseason, it's too bad we're not. I mean, it's just always too bad to mention him and that we're not seeing him play. But, God, he would benefit so much from 20 pounds.
Yes,
if he could do 20 pounds in an offseason, and granted, during the season that goes down to 10.
Right.
But then you build on that the next offseason. Then
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, if he can do that, that'll be great. And that's better than having to learn how to finish like Kevin Durant because KD's 1 of 1.
And it looks like Chet's not going to be able to put on weight.
Right.
I don't know if Wemby's going to be able to put on weight. Somebody like Sean Bradley just could not put on weight.
Kirilenko never did.
Yeah. So that is a thing. I gotcha, but I'm not ready to be there just yet, especially when you look at his brother.
Nuggets tonight here in Salt Lake City, and then back on a 4-game road trip.
I honestly hope the Jazz beat them, not because I'm rooting really or passionate one way or another. I'm just so I need a break from the. Well, you could have beat them if you would have coached to win. I just need a break from that.
And by the way, 3-game road trip, not 4, at New York, at Miami, at Orlando, after hosting the Nuggets tonight.
And I certainly need a break from the people that are like, "Oh, how dare you win that game?" I need a break from that. By the way, do you think Locke is taking diapers with him?
What?
Well, they're going to be at Times Square for
New Year's.
Yeah,
so
and isn't that a thing like you
wear
can't
a diaper.
Because there's not a can available, like there's just no way to go, and so you diaper it up.
Okay. There's some logic there.
He claims that he's going to just hang out in the hotel room, but I don't believe him. I think he bought a pack of Huggies.
On a diaper.
I think he's going for it. It's what you'd do.
Why don't you ask him tonight?
I asked him on Saturday night. He told me no.
Okay.
Number 2, a little bit of breaking news out of Provo. BYU is landing standout defensive tackle Keanu Tanuvasa from the transfer portal.
This hurts for Utah fans. This is real insult to injury. That Tanuvasa entered the transfer portal at all. He's got 2 years left to play. But there was at least some thought he was going to go to USC or Michigan, and you thought, okay, go play for a Big Ten school. I get it. Transferring to your rival, where this is a position of strength historically for Utah. I mean, D tackles is maybe what Utah has done better than anything in the last 20 years under Kyle Whittingham. To transfer to BYU, where that has not necessarily been their strength. Obviously, it's got to be money related, but that's going to be sharp, especially because Keanu Tanuvasa was one of those guys who tweeted out, like, a Utah man am I? Like, I'm a Utah guy through and through, and then deleted it and is now playing for BYU.
Yeah, well, you're pretending like any of that stuff matters anymore.
Right.
Like, that used to be some really good stuff. You know, it used to be some really good stuff that we had in college football. Taught a lot of important lessons like overcoming hardship and loyalty and, all those sorts of things. But, yeah, that stuff doesn't matter to a lot of people. And so now it really doesn't matter to anybody. Like, did you see and I should bring it up before I talk about it, but did you see the Jim Mora Jr. complaint about people tampering with his players?
He did not. He's at UConn, right?
He's at UConn,
Yeah.
And he was saying, for all you coaches that called our guys, we know who you are, and we are going to do something about it. And it's like, Jim, I love your sentiment, dude, and stick to the rules and all that. But, dude, everybody determined that was crap and threw that out 4 years ago now, 3 years ago.
Right. And it's getting more and more every year.
And so, like, okay, you said something, but really, aren't you just whizzing into the wind? I mean, I don't think you're saying what you think you're saying. Like Nick Saban getting all bent out of shape about being called Alabama Jones and a cheater, basically on College game day. Like, and he gets so insulted by it. It's like, that's not the world anymore, Nick. It's now a joke. People knew you were cheating for years. You don't need to defend your integrity anymore. It's all above board. And so, like, yeah. People are tampering with your players? Well, you know what? People have been tampering with everybody's players the whole season.
Right.
The whole season. I mean, I'm sure that Tanuvasa going to BYU, that he knew what was out there for him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Here, Keanu Tanuvasa was on the Blockcast, which is Steve Bartle's podcast here at KSL Sports. In fact, talking about BYU. Now, this was talking about the rivalry game. I haven't heard this, so I'm curious to hear what he had to say about BYU in general.
And the week leading up to it, right, that bye week was just fueled with energy and passion and I wouldn't say anger or hatred. Mm-hmm. It's a rivalry game, but it's not like they're the worst people on the earth.
Right. Right.
It's not like they've actually done things to deserve my hate.
Yeah.
They've deserved everything to deserve my best competition.
I was curious if that's what it is, that excitement to compete.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. And the understanding of what's to come for the next year,
Yeah.
for the next 365 days.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hate you, but one of us is going to be on the side of, man, I wish I won that game. And someone else is going to be like, yeah, we got you, you know? So I'm not going to hate them for beating us, for competing against us. That's a game of rivalry. I'm going to love, and I did. That game was amazingly filled with action and competition.
I don't know. I think he meant that at the time, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
sure, absolutely. Look, he
didn't
never draw a line in the sand and say, I would never play for BYU. Not that he was asked if he'd play for BYU, but I don't think, he ever expressed any, like he said, hatred towards BYU at all. So I'm not surprised that, the right type of money talks and the right opportunity talks, and he makes the jump. He was probably Utah's best player last year, in all honesty.
I don't think there's really a probably.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
Yeah, he's an all-conference defensive tackle.
Yeah, and now he's going to BYU.
Yeah.
So, nice thing if you're a Utah fan. Utah creates these types of guys. They will replace him.
You know what builds rivalries, though? And this is the sad part about all of this, is the players do remember exactly what he's talking about. Like, oh, we'll remember this next year, and I'm really mad. And that stuff just doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
I mean, the fans, I'm sure, will still feel it with the rivalry, but if you're a player, what do you care? Anyway, next.
Number 3, we got the Utah Hockey Club at the Seattle Kraken tonight.
A downstretch, again, for the Utah Hockey Club, but they were at home, and they are terrible at home, and they're really good on the road. So we'll see if they can get back to their winning ways. They have something about playing Anaheim so far this year has really thrown off their momentum. They were really good to start the season. They played Anaheim and never really seemed to be able to regain it. They did the same thing. They had won 4 in a row. They were up 4-1 on Anaheim, ended up losing 5-4 in the shootout, and have lost 3 straight. So they got to regather themselves. They seem to go on these spirals, and they got to figure out a way to avoid doing it.
I'm just paying close attention to this home road thing, actually. I started off kind of mocking it, but I'm paying close attention to it. Not that, it's any sort of diagnosis of the team, but I think home road means nothing in hockey. And guys like Cole Bagley have disagreed with that point. but I don't think home ice means much. And there's a randomness to this team that I think actually proves that fact.
I think a randomness to hockey in general.
Uh-huh.
And I'm more with you. Yeah, again, to lose a game, you're up 4-1, and having done it twice now at home is a major flaw. There's just some randomness to it. You know what I mean? There just has to be. There's some puck luck involved in that. Going to a shootout, which is one-on-one and should ideally come down to skill. Clayton Keller's shot goes off the crossbar.
Right.
A half inch from being in. You know what I mean? There is some randomness there. I think I'm with you.
Yeah. All right. Stay tuned. We'll have more Jake and Ben coming up right around the corner, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bang!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What's that?
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. We will get into more college football and Jazz convo coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, so make sure and stay tuned for that. We were teasing Christian about his Broncos for not being able to get the W over your Bungles, Ben, in order to get that playoff berth. They're still alive. We're all rooting against them. But
and it's not a given that they beat Kansas City next week. I get Kansas City's not playing their starters. I get it. That's not a guaranteed win. There are no guaranteed wins in the NFL. Look at the Giants and the Colts who played yesterday. Giants needed to lose that game to lock up the number 1 overall pick. They win, and now they're 4th. They dropped 5th. They dropped a lot. If they want to get back to having the number 1 overall pick and either taking Shador or Cam, it takes a lot of draft capital to move up 4 spots in the draft.
It does.
So that was a unfortunate win for your Giants.
Can I tell you my personal favorite moment of the NFL weekend is when Aaron Rodgers was playing against the Bills and they were getting blown out.
Was it 40-0?
At one point. And Aaron said to his coach, probably ought to play.
Not me anymore.
Probably ought to play Tyrod.
Who's like your guy?
Is my guy. The Hokie.
Yeah.
Steps in and they scored immediately.
He did 2 straight drives with touchdowns.
Immediately. I was like, oh man, Christmas ain't over. That was easily the highlight. And by the way, now you see this stuff out there like, will the Jets part ways with Aaron Rodgers? It's like, if they're smart.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have brought him in.
No.
So no, they're not smart. So no, they're not going to part ways.
And then I still go back to your Hard Knocks, the one episode of that silly show that I decided to watch, and it was just all clowning Zach Wilson because they're all like, "Oh man, it's so good to see
Finally
a decent quarterback." Oh, jeez. And
Zach Wilson now.
And not only like Zach has a better record as a Jets quarterback than Aaron Rodgers, and now my guy Tyrod is stepping in and being better than Aaron Rodgers too. This is the greatest thing ever.
I'm with you. No, I just checked the box score and I thought, what happened? And then I read the story and I said, oh, that's amazing. That's great.
That's so good.
Yep, it is.
All right, we'll have more Jake and Ben straight ahead. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Man, I'm still riding high on that Tyrod Taylor news.
They only lost 40-14.
Can I bring up something real quick, and then we can dive back into football because college football news is is very prevalent. And actually, we could wrap this story into college football very easily. But did you see that? And I'll just read from the report here from Yahoo. 6 former Florida State basketball players filed a lawsuit against their former coach, Leonard Hamilton, which, by the way, isn't that what's the name of the sunburn guy? Isn't that Leonard, or is that Lee what's that guy's name?
The sunburn guy?
Yeah, the guy who's the old guy who's famous for being overly tan all the time. Anyway.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I don't think it's.
No, I don't think that's
I think
it.
it's Leonard Hamilton.
So he's being sued over unpaid promises of NIL compensation that totaled $1.5 million, and acknowledged within the documents that they boycotted a practice last season over the missed payments. The players never received the payments, despite Hamilton promising the money to each member of the team in 2 separate team meetings, as well as in individual conversations with some players and their families. Several transferred to Florida State under assurance they would receive money.
Yeah.
Now, there are several different, very relevant ways to go with this story. One, when people unleashed this beast that is NIL, the coaches weren't supposed to have anything to do with it.
George Hamilton, by the way.
George Hamilton.
Silver Fox, but yeah.
The coaches aren't supposed to be promising anything.
Correct.
That actually is supposed to be forbidden. So that's my first thing here is, why is the coach having these conversations with these players? Because we all know that
They are,
which is somewhat frustrating to me, but you point this out. Second of all, who's to say what was promised, which is always a gray area, and why there should be rules and structure to this whole stupid thing. And third, there are certain things that you can throw out publicly about people that will give you leverage. And we can all think of things in not sports related, like if you accuse somebody of being something or threaten to accuse somebody of being something, then all of a sudden you have leverage because you just can't stuff that genie back in the bottle, and then all of a sudden your reputation is completely damaged. Who's to say that they're not running this suit to slander this coach? Like, this is a death sentence in college coaching. If you've got the reputation of you're going to promise NIL and you're not going to deliver, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Every player he's recruiting right now goes, I'm going somewhere else. Because they're promising me a little less than you, but honestly, they're going to deliver on it, and you're currently getting sued. That you not delivering on what you promised. I like it. The coach is getting creamed in this whole thing, and I feel bad for the coach because I don't know the whole story, but I know this will ruin him.
Yeah, it's why I'm sure BYU they're not frustrated by the rumor that AJ DeBonsa got $7 million. Regardless of how much he got and how much of it actually came from BYU's people, who cares? The reputation that you do pay guys is a good thing. The reputation that you can't pay them is a really bad thing.
Remember how we were going to try and bring back the word chisel? the reputation that you're a chiseler.
Yeah, right. Is a bad sign.
Way bad.
And you know what? I guess what's funny to me is because we talked about this hypothetical because we saw this coming 2 years ago, 3 years ago when we were back at our old studio over at the arena. And I remember specifically having a conversation, which is what's going to happen when used mattress salesmen, fly-by-night pop-up store can't pay this player that they promised. Okay, this is the head coach. This is no longer the fly-by-night pop-up store that never really existed, because there are chiselers in the world, and chiselers who want to hang around college kids and athletes that will do anything they can and promise anything they can just to get in the door. I remember a guy one time got in trouble for he went into Utah's practice facility and tried to get guys up on the massage table, to give guys massages, and he was not he didn't work for the team. I do think he was a licensed masseuse, but he just wanted to be around the team so badly that he was going to do anything he could to get there.
You should have led with the licensed masseuse thing. That makes it a
sure. Well, maybe he wasn't. I don't know.
This guy just wanted to get in there and start massaging players. But wait, what?
People will find weird ways to get close to the players, however they can, because they want to be involved in whatever they feel this fandom is and their affiliation is with the team. The fact that we have jumped that entirely, the used mattress salesman right to the coach being the guy who's getting the blame for not being paid accelerated far, far quicker than I would have imagined. But yeah, you're right. That is, you have to be crystal clear. And this was the problem with UNLV, right? UNLV's quarterback transferred when they were 4-0. He said, offensive coordinator promised me $100,000, and he never got it. So goodbye. I will find my next spot. And I don't know if he's even found his next spot. I can't remember where he ended up transferring to. But regardless, yeah, that's a really bad sign. And guess what? I still remember that was the case with UNLV. Whether it actually happened or not, it's out there. It's in the ether. I know about it. And it's going to be the case for this guy at Florida State as well. He's not the head coach anymore, right?
No, he still is.
Okay.
So, not going to be for long.
Good luck with that.
Regardless of if this is true or not. Well, this is basketball, but yeah.
Oh, basketball. Okay. That makes even more sense. Yeah. But yes.
So, poor. I really feel bad for her. I really feel bad for the guy.
Yeah.
I used to work with a guy who spent a lot of time in China. And he had a friend who was kind of a ladies' man and wanted to get a tattoo that said something. I don't even know what the tattoo was supposed to say, but it was supposed to be characters to say, something. Well, they found out that he was going to get this tattoo, and they bribed the tattoo artist to give the guy a different tattoo that looked similar, but it was the same tattoo that they give to inmates in prison. And so this guy is going out, and trying to, find a date or two, and he just keeps getting shot down.
Yeah.
Just horribly shot down. You know what I mean? And he's like, what's the deal? And then they told him about this whole joke. And it's like, well, that was, whether it's true or not, that's tattooed right.
Yeah.
That's tattooed right on your arm.
And they don't know it's a joke. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell them it's a joke. They're not going to believe me.
Like he's going to go into the next AAU tournament and be like, hey, guys, I'm Leonard Hamilton. You mean the guy who's screwing 6 of his players to the point where they took him to court? Yeah, I'll be going to Miami, thank you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm going to go anywhere else. Sorry, I don't believe that you're actually going to pay other money. He can say, I've got the receipts. We paid all these guys. We did all the stuff we were supposed to.
And it doesn't matter.
So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you didn't.
We'll see.
So, yeah, that's going to be an easy reputation burner. And you're going to hear dirty recruiting with that specifically. And not just Florida State. I mean, everywhere. There's going to be guys being told, hey, man, I'm glad they're promised you the world right now. I've just heard that sometimes they don't deliver. I've heard sometimes there's been an issue with the payments. That's going to be a conversation they have. Absolutely, there is.
From here on out. And by the way, this is a very Florida State thing. I actually don't necessarily doubt the players. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but Florida State's kind of notorious for this type of thing. Like they're they're a little chiselly.
Yeah.
That's the reason Jimbo left. Jimbo Fisher left Florida State and went to Texas A&M because he's like, you guys are a little chiselly for me. So maybe these players are 100% right, but what I do know is that Leonard Hamilton is finished.
It's funny because that was the hot basketball school about 6 years ago. Like they were getting a bunch of top 5 draft picks. They were pretty untouchable. They were pretty awesome. And the rumor was they were paying players.
Yeah.
So it's funny that now that it's legal, again, everyone has caught up, and they're the team that won't pay players as well.
Which is hilarious.
But yeah,
but
you know what? Good guys, all of a sudden at Florida State, they were winning everything.
If you're BYU and you just landed Tanuvasa, and we don't know everything that goes into it, but you and I have both at least heard rumors that there's some financial incentives. Well, you better pay him every cent. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a police itself kind of thing, But who's to say if he doesn't like, I don't like how hard I'm being coached at practice. I'm just going to go out there and accuse this anyway. I don't know. Not saying that about Tom. No. I'm more just trying to localize the situation. And that is a huge move. And especially BYU and Utah are in the same league now. And at very least, Utah enjoyed a recruiting advantage for 10 years because they could sell that they were a Pac-12 school and that BYU was not.
Yeah.
And I was curious to see what would happen, certainly locally here, now that message was gone. Because Utah did. They enjoyed that for a long time. And they got guys that were traditionally BYU guys or could have been BYU guys, and they all went to Utah because they wanted to play in the Pac-12. Well, now that the stage is the same, how is that going to play out? And I don't think Tanuvasa is actually an example of that one way or another, because I think he's going to probably where he's going to get paid, and honestly, probably where he thinks he has a better chance to win. And Utah fans may bristle at that, but that is 1,000% true right now. And going into next year, Who would you bet on being better right now, Utah or BYU? BYU by a mile.
Yeah, BYU better. Yeah.
So he's got 2 years to play. He probably wants to win. He probably wants to pay. I don't know what his faith situation is like, but if there was a draw there from BYU, that wouldn't surprise me.
Well, look.
I mean.
And all of this happened while I was gone, so I'm sure you've talked about it, so I'm not trying to retread old stories just because I wasn't here for them. But, like, you can't be mad at Keanu Tanuvasa transferring to BYU if you're celebrating Wayshawn Parker being on your roster.
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's the same thing.
If you took Devin Dampier from New Mexico, and I get that that's not Utah's rival. I get that, like, specifically this feels like a rival. Cash has killed the rivalries. It just has. It just doesn't matter anymore. It's not about who you're loyal to. You're loyal to not red or blue. You're loyal to green. That's just what the business is now. It's fine. It's not awesome. I wish there was still some of that college rivalry that existed. It just doesn't anymore. If you can pay me more, I'm going to go where you're going to pay me more. That's what everyone else is doing. So I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. But yeah, if you're paying the kid who came down from Washington, you're paying Wayshawn Parker to come over from Washington State, you're paying Devin Dampier to come over. It's like, it's the game. It's a business. Yeah. Everyone's just trying to chase the dollar now. And Keanu probably got paid a lot more than Utah was willing to pay him. And Utah knows why they weren't willing to pay him more. And BYU knows why they were willing to pay him as much as they were. And by the way, some of it probably was a grenade. It looks really great for BYU that sexy Utah positions are leaving to play at BYU. That's a good sign. The second Utah starts getting linebackers from BYU to transfer to play at Utah, they're going to throw that same grenade back and say, look, man, or a BYU quarterback. Say, yeah, buddy, we did it. We were able to get that guy to come play for our program, and they will gladly do it. But that's the business we're in anymore, and if you're mad about Keanu, you can't also celebrate Wayshawn Parker.
Well, it's what you're talking about there was another reason I kind of laughed at Jim Mora's comments where Jim Mora was saying, like, if you tamper with our guys, we're coming for you. Like, you're kind of at the bottom of the barrel in the FBS world, so yeah, you're probably bent about that. But how many guys on Youngstown State have you contacted already? You know, like how many dudes?
UMass.
You've called Bowling Green. Yeah, you've tampered with all those guys. You're bent. People are doing it to you, but how many of those did you do that to? I'm sure he's not innocent.
No, of course not.
I'm sure he's not.
Yeah.
The only one who's innocent is Dabo Swinney, which I absolutely respect him putting his heels in the sand, although he did take a transfer. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. He broke the seal. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But you can't tell me you're not playing the same game, Jim Moore. And you're right about Utah. But the rival, I think people need to, like, fan projection is the thing. Like a big thing. Like, fans project their feelings onto college and pro players all the time. There was a media member who had trouble with this, even though it was kind of a gray area with it. Years ago, goes into the Golden State locker room after they had just, this is peak Golden State, and they just beat the Jazz. And apparently they were using some bad language, and they were pretty loud and boisterous about their opinions about their now defeated foe. And this media member goes to the Twitter and says, like, I thought better of the Warriors. I thought that they were better than this, dragging the Jazz, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, why'd you think that? Why'd you think? It's not their fault that you projected something that wasn't real upon guys that you have no idea about at all. How they act, how they carry themselves, what they're like as a team. You've got no freaking clue. You just projected your weird fantasy upon this team.
Correct. And then judge them by it.
And then judge them by it.
Held them accountable to it.
Which is kind of crazy. But fans are going to have to get used to this now because the rivalry does not mean anything to these players. Certainly not anymore. If it ever meant something to them, that's not the case. Because now it's not about that. It's not about loyalty. It's not about these fun things that we used to build college football into. It's not even about the revenge game, you know? And again, Tanuvasa is just the example of the moment.
So
we're not trying to hate on the guy. But he didn't walk away from that Utah-BYU game going, I will get these guys next year. Of course not. He walked away from it being like, man, I would have liked to have won that game. But, yeah, if my phone rings and Kalani's on the other side, I'll probably pick it up.
I'm sure he saw Cam Calhoun, who was Utah's cornerback, who now plays for Alabama, enter the transfer portal and get, I have no idea, $100,000 to go play down, whatever it is. And he said, what? You want to know where his rivalry was? His rivalry was with Cam Calhoun. The same way everybody, which is why companies don't want anyone to know how much, everyone makes. Because you don't want rivalry starting within your own company of who makes what. Oh, I'm better. I'm more valuable than that sales guy. Why does he make X amount of dollars? Keanu Tanuvasa sees Cam Calhoun enter the transfer portal, gets $100,000, and he says, what the hell? I'm a way better player than him, and I'm making $55K next year. I should be cashing in. I should be making triple that. And he enters his name in the transfer portal, and his representation, whoever it is, says, yeah, man, Michigan wants you, USC wants you, BYU wants you, and we'll start a bidding war. And if you want to go back to Utah and Utah wants to match the number, great. It's out there. But you're worth $200,000 in the transfer. And again, these are hypothetical numbers. I have no idea. But yeah, the rivalry is not with BYU. The rivalry is with who else in his locker room is getting a paycheck and how much are they getting.
Yeah, it's a great thing we've created. Just really home run for everybody involved. Yeah. Absolute home run. I'll tell you this, BYU's defense is going to be really good again next year.
Yeah, they're going to be awesome. BYU's going to be really good. And I think Utah's going to be good.
They're losing some critical players. I don't know if Utah's going to be good, honestly. Why would you think that?
I like what they brought in. I like Wayshawn Parker a lot. I like Devin Dampier. I just think their offense is going to move, and the defense is going to be fine. With or without Keanu Tanuvasa, they're going to be fine. Utah has a good defense. They always have a good defense. They still had a good defense this year, and they were atrocious.
Yeah, Utah sucked this year, though, and I'd say they've had more minuses than pluses in the transfer portal by quite a ways.
Oh, you think?
Oh, yeah. Tanuvasa alone is better than anybody they've added.
I think bringing in a really good running back who's like a legit number one guy and a new quarterback is big time. I like at least they have an identity on a side of a ball. They don't lose an identity because they lost Keanu Tanuvasa. It's their best player. I have no doubt about that. Utah's second best player was probably the D tackle next to him. Is the nice thing for Utah.
Is this true? I don't even know. Is he the best quarterback in the Mountain West this year?
Devin Dampier? Oh, I wouldn't know. I admittedly did not track.
So
Mountain
they're
West.
bringing in the second or third best quarterback in the Mountain West, and that guy's supposed to be, he's an option guy. I mean, that's supposed to be.
I'm with you. I do not love the idea of the type of quarterback Utah is bringing in all honesty. But they're going to move the ball with this team. If you're expecting him to come out and throw the ball over the field, you're going to be really disappointed if you're a Utah fan.
I agree.
The ball is going to move, though. And the ball didn't move at all last year. So the fact that the ball will move because you have a good running back, and look, Mekhi Bernard was a good running back. Utah's problem last year was they, for some reason, were so afraid of running the ball when that was the one thing that they were able to do. I think that has changed. They have fully leaned into guys who are going to run the ball. Wayshawn Parker is a legit dude. Like, I think he's going to be in the conversation, I think, by the end of next year, assuming he stays healthy, as one of the top 10 players in our state. I think he's that type of running back. And Devin Dampier is going to be productive, whether or not he's exactly what Utah fans want or what you think you're getting out of him. He's going to be productive. He's going to move the ball. And if Utah moves the ball, I think they're going to be fine. So individually, are either of them as good as Keanu Tanuvasa? Maybe not. But just the fact that it was such a bad place for Utah last year, to have at least an identity coming in is a major, major growth.
By the way, Devin Dampier was first team all-conference.
Okay.
So just for the record, make sure we have that correctly. And the guy who replaced the dude you were talking about at UNLV was the second team all-conference.
Yeah, okay.
So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, good for him.
Both option guys.
Yeah.
So not a good year for slinging it all over the yard for the old Mountain West.
No.
We'll have more coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
It's what you want.
So I'm trying to get my phone to not call me Hans.
All right, try it again.
Don't call me Hans.
Okay, what should I call you?
Hans.
You'd like me to call you Hats. Is that right?
No. Hans.
You'd like me to call you Pants.
It's the dumbest thing. What is my name, Google?
Your name is Hans.
God! Stupid. Dumb thing. Could you call me Hans, Ned?
You'd like me to call you Handsome. Is that right?
Well, it's better than Hans. Yeah.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson, thank you for making us part of your... It's still the holidays, right?
Yeah.
Got New Year's coming up on Wednesday. Ben has big New Year's Eve plans. I'm sure you're dialed in and connected. You're probably partying with the mayor or something.
I haven't figured out what to do yet.
Yeah, sure. Which means that Ben is like deciding between 4 like very important activities.
How was the road home?
It was good. I mean, watching the generosity of our listeners is always inspiring.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was great. Real quick, we were talking about Tanuvasa transferring to BYU. Our friend 801 Sports weighs in. I wonder if he's interested in Utah State because they're in the 4-3-5.
Okay. There's also 3-8-5 now, right? Am I wrong in that? What is going on here?
But yeah, does that mean like Utah State does not apply?
Yeah, maybe not.
I like his name though. 801 Sports. We know what he's doing. All right. He says, Keanu made a post calling Calhoun out for leaving for more money after he had already come to an agreement with the school by saying he's a Utah man till he dies. Then did the exact same thing as Calhoun. That's why Ute fans are mad. Going to BYU makes it even worse. I will say this. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get over it. Because now more than ever, there's no such thing as a Utah man.
Correct.
Like he says, Utah man am I. There's no such thing. Okay, so this is a lesson that I learned early in my career. I was a program director, and we had a certain host. And before I go down this road, not Kevin, somebody else, a certain host that was, it was like really important to what we were doing in a hard time for the station, right? And had the attitude of like, hey, I'm staying and we're going to do this. And, everybody got to be on board and all this stuff. And then one day I'm leaving. And there were a variety of reasons that all had to do with him that he was leaving. But still, like those of us who were left holding the bag were like, dude, like what happened to all that stuff you were saying like 10 minutes ago?
Right.
And it's actually something I really had to get over because I really like this person and I still like this person and I understand why they did what they did. But in the moment, it was like...
That really hurt.
WTF, bro?
Yeah.
And fans are just going to have to get used to it. That's just not how it works. You say, oh, he said he was a Utah man. That doesn't exist anymore. The system doesn't allow for that to exist.
No, it doesn't. We've killed that.
We've killed it. I'm not going to say we because I had no part in it.
You didn't stop it?
I did my damnedest. I did as much as one local radio bozo could possibly do, which is nothing, yeah, granted. But I tried. I did enough to not throw myself into the we category.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'll use the royal
all
we.
this great stuff like loyalty and representing. It comes down to this. The appeal of college football was that it was our best against your best. And it's the place in sports where I forgive using we and our because you were a part of the institution. You paid tuition to go there or...
You buy season tickets, whatever. You don't.
The origin of college sports was about this is a group of our best racquetball players against your best racquetball players. Yeah. I see this guy in biology.
Right.
This is one of us. That's the connection to college sports. That's why people root for it. It's despite what people will tell you, former players will tell you that college sports is so popular because they're so good at their sport. That has never been true. And that's not true now. And that's why 801 Sports is bringing up that it feels like a betrayal because the concept of it is supposed to be this is one of us. And so 801 Sports thinks one of us just affected to be one of them.
And
I'm
specifically
bent out of shape about it.
Had played the same game of saying one of us.
Right.
He had said that about Cam Calhoun.
But none of these guys are one of you anymore. And by the way, the direction that we're going, where they're just going to form a professional organization and license out the university's IP, how much will that damage the sport? Because I'll tell you this, nobody wants to watch minor league sports. And if you're a minor league team with a good IP deal, that's not the same as the connection that people feel with college sports.
I haven't always bought this argument from you that the reason college sports are what they are is the loyalty from the fan bases. That's not exclusively it, But more and more, the way we flirt with the creation of these as professional schools, as professional teams, I'm buying more of your argument. That entirely it is just some weird loyalty that you have to your school, whether your dad went there, your mom went there, you went there, a sibling went there, or you randomly watched a game when you were 9 years old and you decided to root for that team. That does really matter, and this type of stuff does hurt it.
Shedeur is probably the 50th best quarterback on the planet right now, and arguably the best quarterback in college sports. Like, the fact that you're good at it is not why people are rooting for it. And maybe Shedeur is a bad example because he's got this celebrity thing, which is a different type of level. But let me think. Who would be a good example of this? But like, what is Cam Ward? How good if we were to rank all the quarterbacks on the planet?
Yeah, he's right there. Yeah, 55, 60, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not the best on the planet. No, people aren't coming to see you because you are the best on the planet.
No. And you are beating up on inferior competition. Right. It's not just, hey, this is the best the world has to offer.
Yeah, not even close. Why aren't 50,000 people clamoring to see the Bees?
Right.
And I love the Bees. But minor league sports, it's not the best of the best. No. The value is not generated because you are so good at what you do.
Even if there's really good games. That's not what it's about. No, we want to see Shohei against Aaron Judge in the World Series. When we're talking about the best of the best, when we're talking about college, we go for a different motivation. We have a different reason. I think you're exactly right about that. And yes, this will kill it. I would also say, find me one person in the world who doesn't wish they had more money. Find me a business. There are billion-dollar businesses that just laid off bunches of people because they said, yeah, we want more money. I mean, look, it happens across the country. It happens across the world. I'm not talking about anyone specifically. It just, there are billion-dollar industries with huge revenue that say, yeah, man, we can make more. We can cut the fat. We can find ways to pinch more pennies and make more money. It is, unfortunately, the way of the world. And just assume that whoever it is, whether it's Cam Calhoun, whether it's Wayshawn Parker, whether it's Devin Dampier, whether it's Keanu Tanuvasa now, their furnace went out. They blew a tire. What they need, the extra money. Grandma's sick. Just assume the best. Assume it's for the best reasons. Is it always? No. Do I think these kids probably need the money or going to find a way to use it? Yeah. I don't think they're doing it specifically to spite you, whoever Utah fan on Twitter or whatever. Just don't take it personally. It's not about that anymore. It's really not. It's not about that loyalty to the school. Like you said. They didn't go to your school out of loyalty and to be rooted on by you. They went for the financial situation, and they're going to continue to do that to their full 4-year, 5-year career.
You know what's funny? You say everybody's out to make more money, and I agree with that, and certainly the players, and I'm not disagreeing. But you know who's not supposed to be about making more money? Publicly funded universities.
Yeah.
And that is the crux of all this.
Yeah.
Is the publicly funded universities got so greedy because they wanted to make more money, then they lost all credibility with amateurism. It's not that amateurism was bad, it's that they sunk it because they're greedy. And it wasn't about providing a good experience for their student athletes. When I get bothered by the NBA tanking thing that you just can't talk about it, with the NCAA, it was like that, but in reverse. Where you just used all these words about student athletes and the betterment of society, and they didn't really mean it. And so then players can go, well, you don't really mean what you're saying, so what's in it for me?
Yeah, what do I care?
And then when you let the cat out of the bag where it is all about money, now it's a mess and a free-for-all. And ironically enough, I think that the student athlete is actually injured in all of this, the vast majority of them. Maybe not Keanu Tanuvasa. He's fine.
Great. He would have been fine either way, though.
But what about the freshman that doesn't get a spot at BYU because of all this?
Yeah.
Or the whatever that gets cut. I mean, and now that you can just openly cut players, that was always lip service too from coaches. But it's so frustrating.
Yep.
If I had a freshman, the Hans talks about Rock and says Rock's going to be fine because, he's still going to Utah State and Rock's still a really good player and all this. But what if it was, well, I've got one Mountain West offer. I've got some Big Sky stuff. I'm trying to get a Big 12 offer. I'm trying to, get my best position. And now you're going to the Big Sky for sure, if not going to JC.
Yep.
Which is, it sucks. And then you have to transfer. Then you have to uproot your life if you want to succeed. It's not an option to go somewhere and stay for 5 years, even if you're the best of the best.
And I don't think we recognize how many players on every team is right on that chopping block. If you're fourth at your position, unless it's a position where you're a corner and a lot of guys are playing, a wide receiver, a lot of guys are playing. If you're the fifth defensive end, like you're on the chopping block.
Go find somewhere else to play.
Every single day,
Yep.
you're constantly fighting for your job. And yeah, it's something as simple as, the coach came in and he brought in his D-line coach, and he's going to bring in his guys. I'm better than his guys, but he knows his guys, so it doesn't matter for me. I'm out. Yeah.
And now what do I do? Now I'm in the wind. So it stinks. And I certainly, bringing this full circle to our tweet from our friend 801 Sports, that's what I'm saying. I certainly understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a knock on 801 Sports.
No, it's
I think
not.
he brings up a very good point.
I certainly get it. But this is just going to be something that fans are going to have to get over, because this is not going to be the last transfer from Utah to BYU or BYU to Utah, and it's certainly not going to be the last transfer of a critical player. It's going to happen.
And it's going to go both ways. Again, Utah is going to fire back, and they're going to pluck somebody from BYU, and probably not this offseason, but next offseason.
I don't know, because BYU appears to have a lot more dough than Utah.
I think you're right about that. I don't think that's going to make them immune to teams coming in and poaching.
Oh, no, not immune. But I don't know how many players are going to be going back the other way, because I don't know if Utah's going to have the resources to pluck the best player on BYU's team.
Well, that will be an interesting development if this continues to happen, where BYU just
and by the way,
turns Utah into a farm system.
Bartle joined us on Friday, and I asked him where that Utah would rank in the league as far as NIL resources goes. And to Bartle's credit, he doesn't know, so he did not feel free to really speculate all that much. But he did paint a fairly rosy picture about Utah's NIL circumstance, at least compared to...
I don't think Utah's hurting.
I don't know, though. Utah's not a big money school.
I mean, compared to Alabama, yeah, they're...
I heard somebody talking about Alabama the other day, and somebody that would know. I think it might have been Ian Fitzsimmons, but I can't remember.
Was it Alabama Jones?
No, it was not Alabama Jones. But saying that Alabama is actually not a big money school compared to a bunch of other schools in the SEC. That their donors, they've got a passionate fan base, but they don't have many Ryan Smith-like donors. That's not like an Alabama education is not a Vanderbilt education. Does that make any sense? Like the big money contributors that are going to drive this whole thing, the billionaires who are donating to all of this, they don't have very many of them.
Okay.
And so compared to other SEC schools. So that might be part, or if we see Bama fall off, that might be part of it. That they're actually at a disadvantage. Like an outsider might look at Utah, BYU, and say, well, Utah's had a better program over the last 10 years, so surely they have way more money than BYU. Not the case.
Yeah.
And maybe a school like, I don't know, Vandy is just an example, but if you've got a big donor base and you're not traditionally good at football, you might be able to turn it around really quick. Now, BYU was traditionally good.
No, Arkansas. Arkansas is a great example of this. They have tons of donors. They have weird billionaire donors. They have a lot of them. And some that care about sports. Now, when that didn't matter, maybe they could bring in some good coaches, but they couldn't bring in the right types of players. Nick Saban could get the players.
Jerry Jones is an Arkansas guy, right?
Jerry Jones, the Walton people, Tyson Chicken. Maybe Tyson Chicken's Baylor. Whatever it is. There's a big group of people who are billionaires that support Arkansas.
That are driving this whole thing.
So, they will be able to close that gap. You're right. Vanderbilt can go out and maybe sign some guys now that they couldn't in the past because they can pay them whatever they want. And teams that were traditionally better, and in this situation we'll say Utah has traditionally been better than BYU over the last 20 years, that can change really quickly now with the new rules.
And has changed.
And is changing clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. There's always...
You're going to have to get back to doing more with less. You're going to have to get back to finding your edge. You have to find your identity and operate that way. That never changes.
But you might be full of scrappy sophomores that are going to end up playing somewhere else for the rest of their career. That might be a thing.
Yep.
Weird. I used to really like college sports.
It used to be fun.
It used to be fun, for sure. All right, stay tuned. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
Tim Lacombe, former U at Stafford.
I came on the scene with Utah like 94. I'd heard things about Coach Majerus, but man, to hear things and then to actually experience the man and everything around him, it was stuff of legend, really.
Britton didn't use the word wrecked him. That would be me summing it up, but it definitely changed him.
What word?
Wrecked.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to... he was... Sometimes it felt like...
Oh, now I get it. All right. It took me a minute. What the heck? I know what I meant to say. I don't know what you people think you heard.
Hold on a minute. I'm on the ground. I was trying to compose myself. Seriously, when you... What?
He says, wrecked him, damn near killed him.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on the airwaves, talking sports. They got it made, Jake's and also loves his tie-dye. Ben's got style with his scarves. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson, thank you for making us a part of your holiday, your Monday. I think today's Monday. Is today Monday?
Today is Monday. Today there is a bowl game. Tomorrow there are more bowl games. Wednesday there's lots of bowl games.
Well, tomorrow is New Year's Eve, I think.
Correct. 31st.
Is that true? Christian, is that true?
Last I checked.
The final day of 2024. Ben, did you force yourself to watch the Thursday night game between the Seahawks and the Bears?
The 6-3? Was it 6-3? Was it back-to-back weeks they had 6-3 games?
Oh, I am hoping that...
Didn't the 49ers also have that 6-3 game? Nobody scored a... Maybe they scored more than 6-3, but nobody scored a touchdown.
I'm hoping that... that Al Michaels was losing his mind.
12-6.
12-6, yeah. Real. But did you see that Bears fans started booing the team?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see how your guy Fingernails reacted to that whole thing? He said that, the frustrations go back before me. And so kind of...
This place is cursed.
Kind of... No, I more thought like Caleb Williams was really trying to say, well, they're not booing me.
Correct.
I mean, they're booing all these other bozos, but they're certainly not booing me, which made me laugh because perspective has been his challenge from what I can see throughout his entire career so far. And it's like, no, dude.
They're booing you.
They're booing you.
There were some funny stories while I was gone, including Caleb Williams gifting his entire offensive line spa packages to get their nails done.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
Did he really?
So
that guy is so out of touch.
Joe Burrow gave all of his offensive linemen like katanas, like real Japanese swords. Look, these guys are all millionaires. It's like you got to find a unique gift to give them.
That says something.
So he's like, these all have unique stories. There's history behind all of these. He's like, you guys are warriors, et cetera, whatever. It's like a unique thing. And you're like, man, I got a sword from Joe Burrow. Like, that'll be a part of my life forever. It'll be a great souvenir.
Hans got shark skin boots from Peyton Manning.
Great. And you're like, no, I got a manicure. I got a gift card for a manicure from Caleb's specific person.
I play offensive line. I don't even have fingernails.
Yeah, right.
left.
I haven't seen my fingernails in years. So that was funny. And then the Mike Brown story, which we didn't touch on today, Mike Brown getting canned, of cursed teams, and that's why the Kings are the Kings. But by the way, you predicted Mike Brown would be the first coach to get fired 2 years ago. You were just a season early.
I was.
You nailed it. You hit an absolute home run. You were just a little bit early.
Dude, the Kings are not cursed. I will disagree. It is all self-inflicted.
Yeah, it is. Right.
It's like if you had a friend who robbed banks and then kept getting busted and you were like,
he's cursed.
wow, he's cursed. No, he's not.
He's a bank robber.
It's entirely self-inflicted.
Oh, boy.
Hey, this coach has had at least some success here for the first coach in 20 years to do so. But, yeah.
Get him out of town.
He criticizes De'Aaron Fox mildly for committing the world's stupidest foul in history.
He's got to go.
And then all of a sudden he's got to go. By the way, Clutch strikes again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't sign Clutch.
Yeah, right. Because they control the business.
They control,
Hello.
Yeah, I know. Adele just fired Mike Brown.
Hey, Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Mike. Hello. Oh, no, it's Adele. I know what this means. Could you at least sing me a tune on my way out? I'm having a tough day.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. All right. We'll talk more. We should talk more about that Mike Brown thing because the Kings are just. If you're looking at the Jazz going through a rebuild, you should have way more faith in what they've got going than anything the Kings ever do. All right, we'll have more Jake and Ben tomorrow. Hanson, Scotty G are coming up next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.